Hello, this is Krish Ramineni. Welcome to another episode of the Strategy Skills podcast. Our podcast sponsor today is strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies. It is a free download. Go to firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. And you can also get McKinsey and BCG winning resume. It is also free download, and you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. Today, we are speaking with Krish Ramineni. Krish is the co-founder and CEO of Fireflies.ai, an AI meeting assistant that transcribes, summarizes, analyzes meetings. Named on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, Krish graduated from UPenn. He was one of the youngest product managers at Microsoft, leading projects in customer voice and growth. He has guest lectured at Stanford on machine learning and holds patents in workflow automation. Krish is a thought leader in SaaS and AI and an active startup advisor. Welcome, Krish. So great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I would love to start with your time at Microsoft and then move to your current company you're building. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience as one of the youngest product managers at Microsoft? What were some of the key projects you worked on, and what insights did you gain from that role that helped you in your current role?
Yeah, I look back at my Microsoft experience as really an opportunity to learn how large businesses work. And I had graduated school very early. I was 21 years old at the time. So right out of college, fresh into the PM role. It was Microsoft really started that product manager, program manager role for fresh grads many years ago, many decades ago. And I was able to learn a lot in terms of how people get work done, how large software companies ship code, how do you serve millions of customers, all within the first year. And again, granted, there are people that have spent decades at large companies, and I was there for a little over a year. That's about it. And so my experience was definitely curtailed short because I decided to leave for grad school. I had a wonderful time at Microsoft. Was planning to keep doing more cool projects there. Was supposed to take on a new project after I got promoted. But I ended up leaving right around the time when we were doing some interesting stuff. The things I spent most of my time working on at Microsoft were related to growth and analytics and A/B experimentation. We built the first growth team at Office and really created a culture of measuring, experimentation, and scaling. And through that, I got to work on a lot of cool growth experiments with all the teams across Office, Word, PowerPoint, Skype back then, Bing, all of these platforms I was able to work with, both as shared vendors and then also as someone that was helping them ship features. So we would run a lot of cool experiments for customers, see what was working, what was not working. And it gave me a lot of familiarity with the entire product suite. One of the projects I got to work on was around customer voice, meaning what sort of feedback people left and how you can take that feedback to determine the health of the customer, if they're liking your product or not. And that got me thinking about a lot of cool things that I could potentially work on. And the underlying truth was there is so much knowledge buried inside written conversation, like text. And I wanted to be able to go uncover that. So that was one of the inspirations for wanting to go do Fireflies. And the other one was I spent so much time in meetings every single day at Microsoft. As a PM, you're just constantly writing meeting notes and being everyone's little secretary. And I didn't like that, but that was a job that you can relegate to someone else. And I always felt, why is it that only the C-suite and the VPs can have their own secretary or chief of staff? What if AI could be everyone's chief of staff or secretary? And, one thing led to the other, and that became the inspiration for starting Fireflies.
Could you talk about how did your time at Microsoft shaped your understanding of customer needs and the product development process?
So we used to have a lot of key accounts that as a PM, you need to go talk to. These were external customers as well as internal customers. So my customers were every single team within Microsoft that was building products and services, right? I was building dashboards for them. I was helping them roll out features. So the internal stakeholders hold you to a really high bar, just as well as external stakeholders. And you have to learn when to say no. You have to learn to read between the lines, because what people ask for versus what you deliver versus what they expected, there's lots of difference. And you have to get better at crystallizing and clarifying that. So the most important thing you can do as a product manager was to listen. And before you jump to solutions, focus on the problem and make sure you're identifying that you are solving the right problem.
You mentioned some not very pleasant experiences in terms of having to be kind of a note taker and doing things you should not be doing in your role, and AI can easily do that job. And this is more kind of frustrating, but it's not a real challenge. What were some of the biggest challenges of that role?
So I do believe when you are at a company, you are a team player and you should do everything and anything that is required in order to help the team do well. And so for me, it was not glamorous to be doing the stuff like organizing meetings, taking notes, and getting people to like ship and stay on top of things. It's just that I will do it. I just felt like maybe there are certain things that could be better automated with software. A lot of the logistics part of it. Like, I think I'm pretty good at logistics and I spend a lot of time helping drive and ship things. And I think you need that as someone that's working in an entrepreneurial space, because even as a product manager, you are the CEO of your features that you're shipping. So I think that's still a really important skill set to have. But I'm always thinking about, could we use our time better? And could we be more productive and doing the thinking, the planning, the execution, rather than coordination and logistics? And that's something that, regardless of any company, as it becomes bigger, there's a lot more bureaucracy and a lot more levels that you need to get approvals from in order to get things done. That's just a natural way large organizations function. And a lot has changed under Satya's leadership. And I'm so excited for Microsoft because of that, because everyone has this growth mindset. Everyone is thinking, everyone is looking to learn, and they're trying to be like a startup in their own right. And in this AI space right now, like Microsoft's leading the way in many things. So full credit to them in terms of how they've transformed as an organization. I just wanted to be able to do that in a smaller setting in my 20s. And I felt like with a small team of 10, 20, 30 people, I would be able to like move really, really quickly. Speed is the most important thing, I think, when you are early in your career and you're trying to optimize for learning. So that was one of the things. Like, I want to work on 10 problems, not one. And I actually had in my first 6 months at Microsoft, where I've had managers come to me and say, hey, you have a lot of energy, you're really smart, you're going to go very far here, but just slow down because other people can't keep pace with you. And you need to like make sure that we have enough resources in order to do these projects and stuff. Like, you're knocking out all this work, and then you're waiting on engineers, and we don't have engineers to allocate for you this sprint. So for me, like, that was the thing. It's like, I don't want to slow down, at least not when you're 21 and you're young and naive. So that was one of the reasons where I felt like I wanted to go do the startup life.
Krish, so for our listeners who still in their 20s and they have to optimize for learning, but majority of our listeners are much more further in their career, but for the group that are still in their 20s and need to optimize for learning even more than later in life, what advice would you give? Because I feel you have a lot to say on that.
Don't obsess over the title and focus on a team and a company where the leadership is good and you can learn a lot from your manager. The manager is going to give you a lot more responsibility and trust to run with things. and you can execute, and that execution gets rewarded or gets noticed, because visibility and having a good manager support you is way more important than having a bureaucratic manager that tries to be more rank and file. So that is like, I think, the most important thing, like even more than the company and the product, which are obviously very important, is the type of group that you work in.
When you were at Microsoft, did you initially thought this is the company for me, I'm going to rise through the ranks? Or at which point did you decide, you know what, I need to do my own thing?
I've always had the entrepreneurial itch to want to go start something on my own and build it, or whether that was at an existing company or that was at like starting my own thing. The nice thing about starting your own thing is you get to define the culture. Like, you're not picking up from what was left. You get to start your own thing and you get to define it. And it really is a reflection of you as a person in terms of the culture. So I think I was definitely leaning towards wanting to build something on my own. I do remember when I first got to Microsoft, I like looked at the org chart and tried to understand, where am I versus where is the CEO, and what are like all the people that I'm going to have to work with in order to get to ship things and get visibility. And essentially for me, I'm not looking for clout. I'm not looking for fame. All I wanted to get my work done, and I didn't want to do things in a manner of 6 months. I wanted to get things done in a week. Like, that's kind of my personality. And even at my own company today, that's what I'm like driven by. So I think I found that fresh out of college, this is a great experience to learn how people work. But people also have lives, right? Like, people have to, like, Microsoft's a place where you can have a life after 5 p.m. And I think that work-life balance, once you're older, in your late 30s, when you have family, is fantastic. When you're younger and you're hungry and you want to work hard, I recommend so many people to go work at, not early stage startups, but like a little bit more mature, 1,000-person companies, 200, 300-person companies, because you got to put in the reps, right? Whether you're in the gym or like you're running a marathon, you got to put in the practice and reps. And it's the same way here. So I had to put in the reps, and I learned so much in my first 2 years of Fireflies that I think someone historically would take about a decade to learn if they were in industry in a big company.
Let's talk about it. What do you feel some of the key things you learned?
You have to do every task when you are at a startup. There is no option. You can't say sales, that's not my responsibility. Support tickets, that's not my responsibility. Like, you have to do everything. And I tell a lot of young tech workers like that, do you even know what your like support team is dealing with? Do you know what your sales team is actually selling? You're out here writing code, or you are out here writing a product spec, but do you know like who it's impacting, right? There's so many people it touches, not just your customer. And sometimes companies have silos and bubbles. Immediately that bubble gets burst. When you are at a startup, you are paying payroll. You are literally setting up the furniture. You have to register your company. You have to answer support tickets. You have to take phone calls. You have to wake up when there's an on-call incident where servers go down. Everything, all the crap that happens eventually falls down to you. You are ultimately responsible for picking up all the pieces of glass that shattered. And nothing makes someone more effective, right? Makes them better at what they do than that level of accountability or burden that's just dumped on your head. And I have to basically tell myself, why am I doing this? I chose this life for myself, right? So you have to be a certain level of crazy in order to want to take that level of accountability and burden.
So talk us through the moment when you decided, I am starting my own company now.
My journey was a little bit different, and I actually left Microsoft to go to grad school. I got into Cambridge. I was going to go to the UK. I had a little bit of free time. I flew out to Boston to spend time with friends. We started working on a bunch of different projects. Nice venture capitalists gave us some office space to come in every day and work on different things. It felt like summer school, like a summer program. And it didn't feel like work. At the end of the summer, my co-founder had the option to go to Stanford or to go to another space company. and he had never worked at any company before. He's interned at a few places. And I had obviously the Cambridge offer on the table. So we both decided, let's just move to San Francisco. Let's work on a company because this is so fun. And I love the idea of being able to work for myself, and it doesn't feel like work. Like it's something I'd be excited waking up every morning to work on because it's your baby. You're like doing this and you feel that sense of ownership. We try to give that same level of ownership and pride to every person that works at our company. And I think we can do that by keeping the company small and the team small. But I think that was that moment, August 2016, when we said, let's go all in. My co-founder had about $400 of savings in his bank account, and he moved out to San Francisco. I had some savings from Microsoft. We really, really were scrappy and bootstrapped and very cautious. Like we had very little money. I think we had less money than like what minimum wage is, right? So clearly very little money in the savings account. We all put in our own money to start the company because we didn't have VCs at the time. We got some small angel checks here and there to help pay for servers, rent, and food bills. But it was very humble beginnings for us, and we like to remember our roots, where we came from.
Tell us more. Take us to those early days and how did you guys stay motivated and were able to stay positive and not give up?
Every day is a roller coaster ride. Some days you feel like, why am I doing this? Other days we're like, wow, this is like so exciting, innovative stuff. Like this is going to work. Like, of course we should be doing this all along. A lot of trial and error. What you see in the movies where someone tries something, it works the first time, and then there's overnight success. Nothing could be further from the truth. Maybe 1 in every 10 million people that happens. But for the majority of people, it's constant failure and like the willingness not to give up and just keep clawing back over and over again. We built 7 products that failed. We had to iterate. You know, people like to use this nice word called pivot. We were like the masters of pivoting because one thing wouldn't work, another thing wouldn't work. But each time we learned something, and each time we learned to fail fast and not spend so much time trying to build something. Each time we try to get validation quickly. And eventually we landed on the meeting space, and we realized that everyone has meetings. They spend a lot of time in meetings, but people don't remember what was said in meetings. So what if we can build AI that takes notes for you, that organizes all your conversations, gives you perfect memory and recall over everything you talked about? Started off as a simple idea. And the thing I like to say is sometimes scaling the simplest ideas is the hardest because it has to work really well and you have to execute really well. A lot of times founders have these complex abstract ideas where their product does 1,000 different things. But the problem there is that you're not really solving any one problem. You're doing a bunch of little different things. So I've learned a lot in terms of being more clear and not being afraid if something is simple, because a lot of times we think, oh, this is simple, it's easily copyable, it's not that big, this can't really be a product. This is just like a little feature, but simple is good. And when you start like going into the layers, you realize it's not that simple of a product. Like Twitter is not that simple of a product under the hood, right? For the end user, it's just like you tweeting and then seeing other people's tweets. But think about the scale and infrastructure and the resources needed to maintain that, right? The newsfeed, the algorithms, the latencies, the downtime, trending, the hashtag. There's so much that goes into it. So never underestimate simple things because at scale, they are very, very complicated. Otherwise, we would have 100 Twitters today.
How much time had passed before you stopped worrying about money?
We grinded from 2016 to 2019, paycheck to paycheck, bootstrapping, consulting. I was dipping into my savings every month. It was really tough. It was in 2019 where we had a product that was working, and we raised our seed round at the end of 2019. We were thinking twice about, like, we would go to investors, they'd say no. We like, man, I don't think we can raise money for this. But eventually we had enough credibility in terms of building a product, having early beta customers, where we were able to raise our seed round. That was about $4.5 million. In the grand context of things, think about like 5 million, but in the grand context of things, to hire engineers, pay all the bills, and do all of that, like we finally felt a little bit more comfortable. And then the pandemic happened. We had launched in January 2020, and then the pandemic took over. We started scaling. We started spending a lot on servers. We started like growing really quickly. And then we raised our Series A at that time, which was 14 million from Coastal Ventures. And since then, it's about managing, scaling the business, making sure you don't run out of money, making sure your customers are happy, and then actually generating revenue so that you can sustainably pay your people.
Krish, so 2016 to 2019, 3 to 4 years of very hard journey. Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently if you could do it all over again?
The advice I give to people is maybe it actually helps to have a few years of work experience before jumping in. Like my co-founder didn't have any like big world, big tech experience. I had 1 year. We were rookies. We were novices. We didn't know anything. Like we didn't even know what a CRM was. Doesn't mean you can't learn it, but it was a lot harder for us. It was 3 years of walking through a desert and not knowing anything, like, and realizing that you're too deep in to go back. Like you're stuck in the middle and you have to figure out how to like navigate, right? You've told all these people that you're going to go do a startup. You can't give up now, right? So there was a little bit of that guilt. And it's 3 years of hell, but it was something that I think we needed to go through. It was the transformation phase. It's the hero's journey arc that you had to go through in order to be what you are. I have seen other people who've had much more gradual transitions where they worked for a few years, they saved up a bunch of money, they came up with the plan while they were at the company, they already found a co-founder, they started working on the weekends on something, they secured funding, and then they conveniently left their job, right? I'm not saying that company will go out to be successful, but they're taking a lot less risks. But we went like cold turkey. So I do believe that maybe if we plan things a little bit differently and we gain a little bit of experience, we could have done that. But I would never regret it because we were right there at the right time, working on AI before it became popular. And I think we had to create our own luck, and I was okay with it.
What are some of the decisions that you would have made differently, knowing what you know now?
I would have focused on trying to build something that a few set of customers would be willing to pay for, and solving that really, really well. We had like a lot of challenges early on because we were working on unproven technology where speech to text was not good enough, like voice technology was not good enough, summarization was not good enough. But we were working in a space where there were way too many unknowns. I think we were 1 or 2 years too early to the market at that time. And life is a lot easier when you can work with proven technology, but there's going to be also a lot more competition. So the cons of doing that was you don't know if the technology will ever get better. So there's a lot of uncertainty. But the pros is you don't have a lot of competition when you start out because only you and a few other crazies are going out and doing this sort of thing, right? So now it seems in hindsight for everyone, oh, what Fireflies is doing is so obvious. Why didn't we think of that? Like, this is such a no-brainer. This is like, yeah, why didn't we come up with that cool idea? I don't think ideas is what matters. Execution is what matters. But it was novel at the time we started because it was hard to do. So if you have to pick, I would say pick something that is hard to do, but just know that it's going to take you a lot longer. Like it's not going to be something you're going to be able to solve in the first 2 to 3 months. You have to give yourself like at least a year minimum in order to see it through. I think most people realize they're almost at the finish line, but then they give up.
Krish, your investors are also investors in OpenAI. I was wondering what kind of early advantage it gave you in starting to explore that platform and what you can do with it.
Yeah, it was a nice coincidence that Coastal Ventures also invested in OpenAI. We did get early beta access to OpenAI's models like a year before ChatGPT was released. It let us iterate and experiment. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it was a huge advantage because people move quickly once the technology was rolled out to everyone. But I think ChatGPT proved to people what the technology is capable of. And it let people see Fireflies in the same light. that, hey, this stuff can like really write notes better than I can as a human. And till then, we did not cross the chasm. But once people were able to realize, wow, this can do that type of work, it was massively like effective.
So let's talk about some of the key things once you figured out, okay, this is what we're going to do. Fireflies.ai, we're going to create this product. Do you remember some early customer interviews and how it shaped the evolution of the prototype?
I did about 30 customer interviews before we even built the product. And then for a few of them, we even gave them a human powered service and see if they could pay for it. And then later we said, okay, there's enough market validation for this. Let's go ahead and build the product. So till then, all the products we worked on, we built before getting proper customer validation. But this time, we first got customer validation, we first had a wait list, and then we built the product.
How did you find people who were willing to talk to you?
We really leveraged our network. All the investors turned into potential customers, friends that were working in other tech companies. So we really leveraged our network. And the beauty of our model was that referrals works really, really well. And people would refer us to other people to talk to. And likewise, when we launched the product, like that first core group of like 50 people end up bringing other people to your platform.
When you were doing those interviews, were people talking about confidentiality concerns? Because if they're using it inside the company, obviously they don't want any confidential information to come out.
That was definitely something early on because you're a new product and they need to know you are doing all the right things. But over time, we got SOC 2 compliance, we got HIPAA compliance, we have our own private cloud version of our product. So over time, as we built out a lot of the security capabilities and admin controls, people started to realize that we had the full suite offering. But in the early days, yes, there is a lot more lack of brand awareness. So they're going to be more skeptical. What is this note taker on the call? Yeah.
So you were able to explain why it would not be a concern.
Yeah, you had to do that. Yeah.
Very good. So let's talk about building a team. What were some of the key qualities you were looking for, key skills you were looking for as you were adding people to your team?
We optimized for raw talent and high energy over experience. Well, one, we didn't have a lot of money to pay those experienced people. And I think there's an insane amount of entitlement in Silicon Valley where people try to poach from other companies and people overpay, especially in this AI, poaching season. These AI wars, as we call it, they are overspending on talent. Like that one person is not going to change the future of your company, but why are you overpaying, overpampering these people? And I'm generally not a fan of that culture. So that was something we were against. Instead, we said, let's pick someone that has good talent that we can help grow and nurture over time. We also were open to building the company globally to just help us scale. And we're a fully distributed company as a result. But I think someone that has a high potential, very high ceiling, is going to be able to do a lot more and like reach new heights. There's time and place for experience, but typically we like to promote from within and we like to cultivate talent and we like to grow our people and invest in them for the longer term.
Makes sense. What were some of the most effective marketing and distribution channels you leveraged to drive rapid user adoption, especially in the early days, but also now?
The main distribution channel back then and to this day, and the only effective channel is word of mouth and product-led growth. So people seeing it in meetings and then signing up for it themselves. That virality is probably the most important thing that we had going for us and that network effects that comes with it. So that was probably like the most effective thing we could have done. Yeah.
So most customers came from seeing someone using your product and reaching out to you, asking how they could use it too, or going to your site and so on, signing up.
Exactly. Yep. That was pretty much it.
What are other things you tried? And maybe you could share with us some of the things that worked at least to some degree and were profitable.
The other thing that worked really well for us is when influencers and famous people started talking about how they use Fireflies, and then we started doing customer testimonials and case studies. That created a compounding loop for us as well. But I think the best source of marketing is word of mouth, for sure.
So for someone listening now who is also building a startup, what would be your advice when it comes to customer acquisition, provided they don't have an opportunity for people to see their product in meetings or to see their product?
That is a really good question. And I think every company is built different. If you can, even if you don't have viral loops, if you can build a product where you're removing friction in terms of buying the product, trying the product, seeing the pricing of the product, I think those are all things I'm very aligned with. You can still build a great self-service business. For some companies, you want to be able to have blogging or content. Some companies, you want to do top-down sales and you want to do prospecting. So the more friction you can remove for a customer, that will actually help with customer acquisition. And then you start building a mini brand where your like first dozen customers will start referring you to other people and people will start talking about it. So the first 100 customers, you're going to have to get them by nook and crook. Like it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of hustling, a lot of demos. But once you have those 100 customers and they're really happy with you, they will help you find your next 100 customers.
So you don't believe we need 1,000, 100 is enough?
Yeah, I don't think that you need to have 1 million customers on day one. Not everyone's going to be Sam Altman, where you can just make a Twitter post and then get a big following of people that are ready to try your product. So you have to prove yourself, you have to earn it. And because of that, it makes a lot more sense. First, get your first 10 people, make them really happy, see if they were willing to pay for the product. Then get the other 10 people, maybe start a wait list, and then slowly roll more people through. Partner with like an influencer or someone big in the industry who can help recommend you, maybe make intros to you, right, to your portfolio companies. A lot of it is doing things that don't scale, right? This is the Y Combinator lessons that they say is early days, do things that don't scale.
I was referring to 1,000 true fans, but I agree with you that 100 gives you a good foundation. So as you look into the future, what are some of the emerging AI technologies or trends that you are most excited about integrating into your platform?
We want to make Fireflies or our AI Fred someone you can talk to, like a personal assistant. So we've been building out our Ask Fred capabilities where after a meeting, I can just ask Fred, hey, what was the deadline for this? Who needs to approve this? Just like I would talk to a teammate. So we're focused on making Fred more and more like a teammate, like you're a chief meeting assistant. That's how we've been building out the experience. We want to be able to give you more superpowers on top of the platform beyond just note taking. So if I want to be able to score a call, I want to get like recommendations. If I want Fireflies to write up a blog post based on this podcast, like I can have Fireflies do a lot more follow-up work beyond just taking notes. And we are really exploring that. And the LLMs and all of this stuff really make way for a lot of this experimentation.
I know it's very hard to predict, but based on your experience, what do you think the world will look like in 5-10 years, given everything that is happening with AI?
I don't know how far we are from artificial general intelligence or AGI, where like a single AI is going to do everything. But somewhere along the way, we're going to have specialized AI for now. And I'm a big believer in AI agents and like how we will have agents that are doing a lot of back office work for us, just like how software did that in the past. And these agents are going to be like teammates, right? Agents that go do interviews for you, agents that write code for you, agents that take meeting notes for you, agents that kick off approval processes in the business. In the consumer world, I'm also really excited about these robotics companies that are building humanoid-like robots that can like cook, clean, fold the laundry, wipe the floor. So I think, what if every household, in the next decade has one of these humanoids, just like how we all own a car? That will be a crazy world to think about. Like it's like in those cartoons back in the day, like the Jetsons, where you have robot like cleaners.
Krish, so stepping away and starting to wrap up our discussion, what habits or practices have you personally cultivated that you believe have contributed to your professional success, personal success, and impact you're making in the world?
Surprisingly, I like to have as little meetings as possible throughout the day. I like to have my calendar cleared because I want to be able to think, work, be creative, be in my flow state. So I try to pack as many meetings on like 1 or 2 days of the week. And the rest of the week, I don't like to have meetings. I know we build meeting software, but it's funny that we ourselves try to have as little meetings inside our org as possible. And meetings that I can't attend, I'll just have Fireflies attend and then I'll listen to afterwards. So it's about how you prioritize your most productive parts of your day. Like you don't want to just be going meeting after meeting after meeting. You want to be on a maker schedule. Like so, if you're a builder, if you're an engineer, if you're a designer, you're a marketer, you need time to just focus and think. Another thing that I wasn't that good at, but I had to learn over time is scheduling things into my life. So every part of my day, unfortunately, for better or for worse, is scheduled. So from meeting friends to going out for food to traveling to flight tickets, logistics just takes so much time. And I'm trying my best to figure that out. Like I now have an executive assistant. I have someone that just manages like my flight schedule. So those are things that I didn't think about. I felt like I could do all of it on my own. But eventually you are going to need to have people to lean on and people that can help you manage your life, especially when you want to be doing the most productive things, the most high impact things, which is focusing on your team and your customers and your product.
What are some of the habits you are trying to develop?
I'm trying to read more. I like to listen to podcasts, but sometimes reading can get you information that's a little bit more in depth. I read a lot of nonfiction, a lot of business stuff. But for me, like when I'm going for runs or doing some activity, like podcasts are pretty convenient. So I do tend to listen to those. Yeah, I'm trying to also learn new languages. Again, not related to work, but because our team is in so many different locations, I tend to have to travel. And, one of the things I realize is the ability to speak multiple languages is such a huge advantage. I know 2 languages. I took Spanish as well for 3 years, but I forgot everything. And I want to learn that. And I want to be better at speaking more languages and conversing with more people. But as you can tell, if I orient all of my work around this, it's around communication, whether we build communication software or how we communicate at work, how we deal with meetings or how we meet with people. Like me and my co-founder have made communication our life mission. So we want to be just getting better at that. But speaking multiple languages is a superpower. And I feel like people in the US usually only speak English. And I think there is huge advantages to learning other languages. So that's just something for fun that I'm trying to learn and pick up on the side.
It is incredibly beneficial. I speak 2 languages and I try to learn French. So I know very little bit and I forgot most of it. And I can tell you that, and you know it yourself because you speak 2 languages well, that it's not just you're able to speak another language, but it's almost a completely different life because it comes with a set of movies and cultural things that you would never understand if you didn't speak that language. And it is almost another planet in a way. And it really makes you a more effective leader and allows you to see solutions that otherwise you would not be able to see.
Oh, that's really true. I couldn't agree more.
Krish, anything else you want to share? Maybe something you wanted me to ask you and I didn't. Any final words? And also, where can our listeners learn more about you? Basically, anything you want to share, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we always try to constantly learn about is how are people using our product? And I'm sure there's some listeners out there that are Fireflies users. How can we continue to help make the experience better? Would love to hear that. And as we roll out our Fireflies app store, would love to get ideas and suggestions for different types of apps that people would want. And you could reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, on Twitter DMs, but typically LinkedIn is a great place. And then Twitter, my handle is Krish Ramineni. So you can find me there. And for trying out our product, go to Fireflies.ai.
Thank you, Krish. Really appreciate your time. Such a great discussion. Thank you for everything you shared.
Thank you.
And for everyone tuning in, thank you for being here with us. Our guest today has been, again, Krish Ramineni. You can check out his product on fireflies.ai. And our podcast sponsor today is strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies. It is a free download. You can get it at firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. And if you would like to polish up your resume, you can get McKinsey and BCG Winning Resume, also free download. And you can get it at firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. Krish, thank you again for being with us. Thank you everyone for listening. And I'm looking forward to connect with you all at the next podcast session.